One time when Melissa was 9, she went camping with her family and close family friends. And after they finished making the tents, they decided to take a walk through the forest. When they got back, there were 2 raccoons in a friend's tent. It took about an hour to get the 2 raccoons out. At the end, Melissa tried to tell a joke, but instead of saying,
"That was pretty intense,"
she said,
"That was some great incest."
almost everybody laughed, but her mom told her that once they got back home, she was grounded. However, Melissa's mom forgot to ground her. Gooby has a weird fear of napkins and dry hands. She can't touch napkins unless they're wet napkins. If anyone uses napkins or rubs their dry hands, and Gooby hears the sound of it, she starts to have a panic attack. Gooby has had it since forever, and she has to put lotion on a lot to avoid the terrible feeling of dry hands.
One time, Tolop's sister invited her boyfriend to stay over for the first time. Tolop and his sister had separate rooms, but Tolop's happened to be right next to the bathroom. It was a hot summer, so Tolop had started sleeping naked without any covers. It was midnight, and Tolop still couldn't get to sleep. Everyone else was in bed, so he decided to masturbate. Unfortunately, it was at that exact moment that his sister's boyfriend came stumbling down the hall. He was looking for the bathroom and walked into Tolop's room by mistake. He turned the light on and saw Tolop going at it and said,
"Oh, I guess it was the other door."
Tolop has avoided him ever since and is praying his sister will break up with him.
When Zaraganba was 21, he broke up with his crazy girlfriend of 3 years. She told him that if she ever saw him again, she would stab him in 3 different places for the number of years they dated. The places she chose were the head, the pelvis, and the chest. 2 years later, Zaraganba was out with his new girlfriend at a restaurant when he saw his ex. His ex quickly grabbed the knife she was using to cut her food with and sprinted towards him. Remembering her threat, Zaraganba shit his pants, grabbed his girlfriend, and bolted to his car. They stayed in there for a couple of hours, waiting for the police to arrive. While they waited in his car, his ex-girlfriend kept banging on his window. The police finally showed up and took her away. Later on, Zaraganba found out that she was high on drugs and it was the last time he ever saw her.
Dolan was working as a barista in a small cafe, and one day a coworker was preparing food when he stopped for a toilet break. The manager accidentally walked in on his coworker mid-shit and quickly closed the door. That was the day that his manager realized that Dolan's coworker had actually been using the same gloves to handle raw meat and wipe his ass. The staff had to quickly recall all the food prepared by his unprofessional coworker. He was fired on the spot and could have caused a ton of people to get food poisoning.
Now, I have been self-employed for most of my life, but I did work as a cashier at one point at a place called Harris Teeter. And at Harris Teeter, which is a grocery store, I remember one time my manager told me to go and clean the men's bathroom in the back. So, I got my mop, I got my bucket, and I got my broom and all that crap, and I went to the back room. I opened up the bathroom door, and there he was, my coworker, sitting on the toilet, masturbating. I looked at him and I said, "Hey there, Robert." And he looked at me and said, "Oh, hey there, Nixium." So I closed the door and I went to my manager and said, "Yeah, bathroom is preoccupied right now. I'll clean it later." Me and Robert never spoke about that again because it was really freaking weird. He also had a really small penis.
Spinal Palm was given detention when he was told that it was time to get off the school's computer. He replied,
"Oh sure, just let me say my work."
Just then, the teacher unplugged the machine. Back then, there was no such thing as autosave, so his entire report was lost. When they told him he was not getting an extension to do it again, Spinal Palm ended up giving up on school. From that day forward, he didn't cooperate with any of them, didn't turn in any homework, and graduated with Fs. And now he draws cartoons for the internet.
Shima was in high school. She was really shy and she couldn't talk to boys. One night, her Skype friend introduced her to a guy who lived in the town right next to Shima's. This guy was really shy, but he was nice and they both shared a love of Minecraft. Shima and the guy quickly became friends, and they started playing Minecraft together every single night. At first, Shima was happy just being friends, but when she saw him on webcam for the first time, she became one smitten kitten. Eventually, they decided to meet in person. They went to an ice skating rink, but they were both way too nervous to talk. They tried again at a laser tag place, and it went much better. When it was time for Shima to leave, the guy awkwardly asked her for a high five. Shima gave him one, and the high five turned into several minutes of hand-holding. They soon started dating and are still going strong.
One day, Tolop was hanging out with a group of people at an event to try and make some friends. They talked about themselves and any issues they had. When they got to him, Tolop said, "I have trouble talking with people because I have Asperger's and..." But he was cut off by a man next to him who started to laugh. Everyone in the group looked at him when Tolop said, "Excuse me," but the man laughed even harder and said, "Asperger's? What the hell is an Asperger? Do you spend your time eating burgers out of people's asses?" Tolop was disturbed, disgusted, and offended. He stared at the man for a moment before saying, "It's a form of autism and I have a speech impediment, you ass." The man just mumbled that he was sorry and wouldn't look at him for the rest of the event.
The dumbest excuse Tolop ever heard was when he and his friend were cooking spaghetti. When the water was heating up and nothing else was on the stove, Tolop had to use the restroom. He went to the only restroom they had. When he came back, the pot was on fire. When they finished putting out the fire, Tolop asked his friend what happened. He said, "I was in the restroom and the dog wanted to watch it." But Tolop was in the only restroom, and neither of them had a dog? The only possible explanation that would make sense is if his friend went out to a tree and he saw a stray dog there, but that's stupid.
One time, Tolop's class went on a field trip to the snow. They had to take a hellish 12-hour bus ride. But it wasn't all bad, because Tolop got to sit across from the hottest girl in school. They talked the whole way and, well, they really hit it off. Tolop really wanted to make her laugh, so he waited for her to take a sip from her drink bottle. While she was drinking, he reached across and squeezed her bottle, making water explode all over her face and clothes. But his crush didn't find this funny. Instead, she got really mad. Tolop apologized, but she refused to talk to him for the rest of the trip. He definitely left an impression on her, just not the kind he was hoping for.
The weirdest punishment Sweet Commando's parents ever gave him was when he had to go outside and pick up every little stick, leaf, and loose piece of grass. He was out all day doing that, but it only got better. After that, they made him clean the entire house with only a sponge, and said that everything had to look brand new. Then, Sweet Commando had to cook dinner, wash the dishes, and cut and squash strawberries so that his mother could make a pie. Needless to say, he never did anything bad ever again.
Tolop loves telling little lies to his brother because he is very gullible. One time, Tolop told him that boogers were actually dead brain matter. He told him when our brain gets bigger, it sheds its skin, that's what you see coming out of your nose. Tolop's brother thought this was amazing. He asked if eating your own boogers makes you smarter, and Tolop was like, "Yeah, absolutely." Now Tolop's brother eats 3 square meals of boogers every day.
Gergek has never been the most socially graceful person, but looking back, one particular memory from high school makes him cringe. He was on his way to the cafeteria when he passed a girl from one of his classes. Gergek was in a good mood that day, so he decided to pay her a compliment. He opened his mouth and the words, "You're real pretty for someone fat," came spilling out. The poor girl was shocked, and the other students around him stared at Gergek like he had something wrong with his brain. Gergek immediately put his hands to his mouth and rushed straight out of the cafeteria. It was not his finest moments.
Salty Squid went to his friend's house and made the mistake of opening the freezer. There he found his friend's dead goldfish, wrapped in tinfoil. His friend explained that when the fish died, it was winter, and the ground was too hard to dig up and bury him properly. That explanation would have made sense, except the fish died 7 years ago. When Salty Squid asked his friend why he wouldn't just flush it, he said he could never do something so cruel to his best friend.
Back when Ramona was dating her boyfriend, she had to go to her room to change. When she entered, she saw her boyfriend watching the Discovery Channel with his dick hanging out and holding a pair of her panties. He whispered, "That animal is the fastest? Lies, my dick is." He went on to say, "I gotta fuck that bitch." Ramona asked him what the fuck he was doing. All he said was that he was getting the condoms ready. It turned out that he was planning on breaking up with her by jizzing on her bed and stealing her panties.
I'd like to think I was a pretty good kid for the most part, but every now and then, I'd do something that upset my parents. One time, my dad thought I was being rude to him, so he told me to stand in the corner, but not just any corner, the one right by the front door. I didn't really understand what this was doing, but I guess it was his way of a timeout. He'd make me stand in the corner and then go to the TV room and watch TV. So I used to go upstairs, grab my Game Boy, and play it while I was standing there. And as I heard his footsteps coming towards me, I'd hide it behind my back. I'm pretty sure that to this day, he has no idea that I did that. Hopefully he's not watching this video. Tolop had started a new job and hadn't made any friends yet. One afternoon during his shift, he really needed to pee, so he ducked into the men's room. No one was around, so as he stepped up to the urinal, he started singing the old Batman theme song. Only his version went,
Na 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 pissing, pissing, pissing.
Just as he finished, Tolop heard a door open and saw one of his new coworkers coming out of a cubicle. Luckily, the guy didn't make a big deal about it. He said,
Hey, we all do weird things when we're alone.
It turned out to be a pretty good icebreaker.
Tolop's high school history teacher named Mr. Callahan used to be the lead guitarist for a band called Burn the Ballroom. One day, he brought his electric guitar into class and started playing different tunes to what they were learning. He also played a song he wrote called Fire Breather for the class. He was the best and coolest teacher Tolop ever had.
Civil Spider was watching a costume contest at a convention when the announcer called for contestant number 7. Suddenly, a bunch of Deadpools ran up on stage and started dancing. One of them was holding up a boombox that was playing YMCA, so they were all doing the YMCA poses. The announcer sounded pissed and yelled at them to get off the stage. Then the contest continued like nothing ever happened.
Princess and her mother were about to go shopping at the store, and Spincess wanted to wear her crop top. Spincess's mother didn't want her to wear it, so they argued about it. Eventually, Spincess's mother ended up putting on the crop top herself, so that Spincess couldn't wear it. When they went to the store, they ended up seeing the principal from Spincess's school, and worse yet, the principal saw them.
Dolan asked his older brother, Zaraganba, for dating advice one day. When he asked why, Dolan said that there was a girl at school he was interested in going out with. He went on to describe her as someone who wasn't the girly type and loved to roughhouse with the boys. Zaraganba didn't know anything about girls, so he told Dolan that since she was boyish in nature, that he should cut a loud fart in the middle of class. The next day, Dolan came home, red in the face, as though he had been crying. He had told Zaraganba that he farted so loud that one of the windows in the classroom shook and fell out of the panel. Everyone had been relentless with their insults after that, since Dolan was in the 4th grade. To make matters worse, the plan didn't work. The girl never talked to Dolan again.
One time, my friend Melissa got on a train, only to find some dude wearing a Batman costume running up and down the carriage shouting, "Choo-choo, choo-choo." He didn't get off the train. He just kept running up and down the carriage with his arms in the air screaming, "Choo-choo, choo-choo." Melissa thought he was drunk, but I think he was on something a little bit stronger.
When Gergak was in high school, he had a crush on a punk girl who was way too cool for him. Gergak didn't know how to get her attention, but one day a crazy out-of-character idea popped into his head. He decided to go into the bathroom and set fire to all the trash cans, toilet paper rolls, and paper towels. He narrowly avoided getting in trouble because the janitor and principal couldn't prove it was him. His crush thought it was amazing and agreed to go out with him. But their relationship didn't last long because they had nothing in common, and Gergak couldn't keep up the charade that he was some badass punk.
When Mimi Up was in high school, she loved to write fan fiction. This was a secret that she kept through most of high school. She wrote stories pairing her OC with Aizen from Bleach, and some of the scenes got pretty intense. Then, for an English assignment in senior year, Mimi accidentally turned in her fanfiction notebook instead of her English notebook. Mimi's teacher read an entire chapter of her fanfiction out loud to the entire class, which was humiliating. But then she complimented the work and asked the class, "Why couldn't you write something like this?" In the end, Mimi's English teacher introduced her to an online writing site called Wattpad, where she went on to write even more fanfictions.
One day, Andy and her boyfriend Adam were playing Call of Duty Black Ops 3 together on their PS4s. They decided it was more fun to play competitively against each other, rather than co-op. But at the end of the third game, Adam suddenly shouted, "That's it! I'm breaking up with you!" Shocked, Andy asked why. Adam said, "Because you got more kills than me." And he was serious. That was the last time Andy saw or spoke to Adam because he blocked her on everything.
Dolan and his brother Zara Ganba once worked night shifts at a local factory. Dolan's brother was in charge of sorting parts while Dolan operated the machinery. One night, Dolan was really restless. He kept pacing about trying to distract his brother from work. Zara Ganba told him to go back to his workstation, and Dolan would say,
"But I'm bored."
An hour later, Zara Ganba's boss came over and asked where Dolan was. Apparently, Dolan's machine had been left unattended and almost backed up. They searched around and found Dolan waiting outside watching YouTube on his phone. Dolan had just decided to quit his job without telling anyone and was waiting for Zara Ganba to finish his shift so he could get a ride home. Zara Ganba told his boss he was sorry for being related to such a failure of a brother.
When Gergak was 11, he was walking home from school when he saw a homeless guy on the sidewalk. Gergak said hi and gave him $3. But while Gergak was handing him the money, the man grabbed his hand and said, "Nice hand, kid. You want to feel something else?" Gergak quickly ran home and told his parents. They called the police and had the man arrested. It turns out the man wasn't a homeless man. He was actually a rapist who had been a fugitive for 2 months.
One time, Tolop cheated on a test by letting his friend write the whole test for him. The thing about their test is that there are 2 different versions, so the teacher would know who cheated and who didn't. So Tolop just slipped his friend his test, and he wrote the whole test for him. When his friend was alone, he slipped it back to Tolop, and it was all good. The funny part is that they sat right in front of the teacher, and he never noticed Tolop passing his friend his test. Tolop aced that test. Moral of the story is that if you have a smart friend and you sit beside him, just let him do your test for you, and all will be good.
I was home alone one day listening to music when I heard a child crying. I took out my headphones and could hear it, plain as day, a child crying. My blood immediately ran cold because I knew that I was the only person home at the time. I was so scared I couldn't move for at least a full minute before I jolted into my bedroom where I hid underneath my blanket until my mom came home. It could have been my imagination, but who knows? It was really spooky. When Pringle was in high school, he was on a bathroom break when he noticed some dirty footprints leading into the toilet. He was just about to use the urinal when he could hear a noise inside of one of the stalls. Next thing he knew, the door of the stall flew wide open and out walks a guy who was butt naked and covered in mud, trying to scrub all the dirt off with toilet paper. He looked at Pringle with complete shock and horror. It turns out he was trying to clean himself up so he wouldn't get in trouble for being so dirty after playing football during a lunch break. Yikes. One day, Hellbent was bored, so he prank called a stranger. When a sweet old lady picked up, Hellbent told her she just won the lottery. She was so excited that she started listing all the different ways the money would change her life. Hellbent told her to listen very carefully to this next part. He said that to collect her winnings, she had to call the following number. Hellbent then read out 3/4 of a made-up phone number, then hung up before she could write down the final digits. Hellbent gained a great story, while the old woman was left with nothing but disappointment and an empty bank account. Man, that's fucked up.
Ghost Toast could have used this piece of advice when he was alive Toast. One day this crazy guy told him that if you get stabbed, you should keep the knife in. But if you stab someone else, then make sure you take the knife out. It's definitely good advice for anyone thinking of getting into the serial killer business.
One time, Dylan went to a party and ran into his ex. It was a bad breakup, so Dolan was worried she'd still be upset. But to his surprise, she seemed okay, and she was even mature enough to say hello to him. Later that night, when everyone at the party got drunk, Dolan's ex came up to him and said, "I have something to show you." She then led him to an empty bedroom and closed the door with her back to him. When she turned around, she had a huge knife in her hand and started screaming, "Why didn't you love me? Am I not pretty enough for you?" She started walking towards Dolan with the knife pointed at him. Luckily, Dolan's friend heard all the shouting and burst into the room to save him. He tackled Dolan's ex to the ground and took the knife from her. It was definitely the most eventful party Dolan's ever been to.
One time, Honeybits tried to get away with going on a field trip without a permission slip. On a particular day, when her teacher said that slips were due, Honeybits didn't have hers. So she grabbed a pen and wrote her mum's name on the signature line. To her surprise, it worked on the teacher, but not on the bus driver, who was her mum. Honeybits was still able to go on the field trip, though her mum said to her from the driver's seat, "I didn't know you'd be here. Have fun on the trip."
When Slapped Ham was 4 years old, he had to do simple math homework, like takeaways. When he asked his mom if she would help, his mom told him to call somebody. She meant for Slapped Ham to call a friend or relative, but she didn't specifically say who. So Slapped Ham called the only number that he had memorized on his home phone, 911. A male operator responded and awkwardly helped him with 1 or 2 math problems until his mother realized he was talking to the police. She told Slapped Ham to hang up, which he responded,
"But you said if I needed help, I should call someone."
And she responded with, "I didn't mean the police." Slapped Ham then hung up and his mother helped him for the rest of the night. She still tells this story at family reunions and has relatives laugh every time.
In 4th grade, a classmate told Dolan that he would pay him $20 if he took all the gum from under the desk and chewed it. Dolan actually thought his classmate had the money, and so he did it. Slowly, Dolan went through piece by piece, putting each one on the floor when he was done chewing it. At the end, he asked for his $20, but his classmate just laughed and said, "We never shook on it." Dolan was pissed, so he got the pile of gum and chucked it at him. At the end of the year, Dolan's teacher gave him a trophy for helping clean the school.
Doopy was locked out of her house one night, so she went to every window in the house and tried to open it. None of them budged. She started to get really annoyed, so when she saw the garage window was open, she figured all she needed to do was remove the screen and climb in. She balanced on a chair to reach the window and started taking the screen off when she heard footsteps. She paused and looked in, and saw a shadowy figure standing in the middle of the garage, facing away from her. She tried to take a step back and of course fell straight to the ground. She was pretty freaked out by what she saw, and there was nothing she could do but cry and wait for her parents to come home for 2 long hours.
One day during math class, Legna let out a really loud sneeze. It startled his girlfriend, who was all about school. So the next day, she broke up with him because she said that she couldn't be around someone who sneezes in the middle of class. Later, she ended up finding another boyfriend, but was soon dumped by him. In the end, she ended up crawling back to Legna.
In 4th grade, Spincess started at a new school. At the first day, she noticed a group of girls looking at her menacingly. Then, on the next day, they stopped her and asked if she wanted to see something cool. Spincess agreed and followed them to the bathroom. Once they were in the bathroom, the girls attacked her. They hung her by her underwear before leaving. During the 3 hours that she was hanging there, the other kids noticed her, but didn't help. She was freed once the principal walked in and saw her. The bullies ended up getting suspended, and Spincess changed schools yet again.
One New Year's Eve, Gooby drank an entire bottle of wine all to herself. After the fireworks, she decided she really wanted an ice cream, so she convinced her poor friend to walk with her in the cold to a nearby gas station. They decided it would be a good idea to bring a huge butcher's knife, just in case anyone tried to mess with them. At the gas station, Gooby and her friends picked their ice creams and went to the counter. The cashier immediately noticed the huge knife sticking out of Gooby's purse and thought they were trying to rob him. He was about to call the police, so Gooby and her friend paid for the ice cream and got out of there.